I'm Jill Duncan. I own and operate Loving Roots Urban Farm. I'm located in Ferguson, Missouri, which many people have heard of, the north part of St. Louis. I farm only about an eighth of an acre, no till, very biointensive, down in the plants all the time. So everything is hands on. And yeah, I have a retail side and a wholesale side, and it keeps me busy.
Eighth of an acre, for sure on the smaller side of even the context of farms I talk to.
Yes.
From the acre and a half farms, you're much smaller than that. A
Yep.
lot of people struggle finding land, but the chances of finding an one-eighth of an acre are probably pretty good. What is possible from your experience on just an eighth of an acre?
Wow. I've been able to make a living wage plus and keep myself perfectly busy. So to me, it's possible to actually make a living for yourself. And I've been able to prove that. I love this size of space because I'm able to see everything all at once. And if I see a problem, it doesn't go unnoticed. I love being able to look out and pretty much have my eyes on every single bed. And it's been really beneficial. But I have had huge success and I love staying small.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
for eighth of an acre, what's the bed layout on that?
I've got I've got 32 50-foot beds.
Okay, so 3250 beds, manageable.
Yep.
With 32 beds, how diverse in terms of cropping can you
Right.
get on that?
Yeah. I'm definitely focusing on the quick growing crops like salad mixes, radishes, Hakurei turnips, those things of that nature. But I also have a very large head lettuce business. I also sell tons of kale and chard and collards and carrots and I do cherry tomatoes only. So just small things. I'm really focusing on things that people put in a salad, but I have this 80-20 rule where it's 80% is all of that. And then 20% I like to just play around with. So this year I'm plugging in some sorrel and I just like to keep it fun for myself as well, which is like trying new things.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
On that size space, quick growing crops, probably get a good margin on all of them, but keys to making it work on eighth of an acre. What's
Ooh,
your
keep it going. Never stop. Yeah. Honestly, when I think about that, my revenue has gone up every year on the same size plot because I'm getting more and more efficient and I'm flipping those beds a lot faster than I was even in the beginning by just like improving my methods of no-till and things like that. So I don't know if that answers your question, but keep it going and always have something planted.
no open space because you can't
Yeah.
afford to? The efficiency thing is interesting.
Yeah.
Where has that just been? I'm trying to think, where has that shown up? It's so bed flips, they're more
Mhm.
efficient, meaning it's now days or hours instead of what was?
Yeah.
Is it where's
Yeah.
that showing up?
Yeah, I think bed flips mainly in that like maybe a bed before would have sat for 2 or 3 weeks and now I'm trying to get it either planted the next day or if it's something that needs to break down, maybe the next week. So just, yeah, being really on top of my timing. I do have a crop plan in the beginning. I like to play around with it a little bit just based on what happens in the field, but also just I think each year you learn new things and now I have no fungal issues and I don't have like pest issues. Like there's things that I've just like really honed in and not in on so that I'm not losing any crops either, knock on wood.
Right. That's the other thing I was thinking is getting more yield due to
Yeah.
better growth, better germination, plant
Yeah.
health, all.
Everything. Yeah. And just learning like, yeah, better germination. If I see a problem, how to troubleshoot that faster. Just learning the ins and outs every year of trial and error and research and all of that has really helped me. And this past year was just dynamite. I'm hoping I have another one like that.
Yeah.
I actually, past year, I farmed about 5 fewer weeks because I took a month-long trip to Portugal, but my revenue went up tremendously.
Yeah. Do you mind
Yeah.
saying what you can make?
Yeah. So last season, I brought in about 65,000 on an eighth of an acre. And that is harvesting from beginning of May to beginning of November.
It's really good.
It's really good. I'm really maxing it out. I have a very high quality product and I charge accordingly. Yeah.
How does I know we'll get into this. I know you rent land, you want to get to land to do more things, but if we ignored other aspirations,
Yeah.
is this scale big enough for where you need to be in terms of a business? If you stayed an acre for the next 10 years, does that fit with what you need, where you want to be business wise?
It fits in that, yes, I could continue to do that and make enough. And between my partner and I together, his profession and mine, I think like it's enough financially. In my heart and in my mind, no, because I like to push. I like new things. I like learning new things. And I've always said that every 7 years, I can track this back. I literally changed my whole life. And this last one was going from being a body worker to a farmer, literally like one to the next. And so I know other things are coming, but I believe growing is my future. But I already feel and know some other things that I want to get into that will be like adjunct to what I'm doing now. So would the eighth of an acre fulfill me for the next 10 years? Probably not. I'm in my 5th season now and I'm already ready for the next piece of this, which I have some ideas for my new property when I find that. About 2 years, I was going to scale up into the plot right next to mine, literally doing all the plans for it, and talked to a mentor of mine. And she said, I want you to do this practice. And it was over the winter. And she had me sit down with some markers and she had me create these concentric circles about what's important to me in my life. And I did that project and I looked at it and I said, I'm not scaling up. And the farm is very important to me, but also is my self-care and my relationship and wanting to move to a more rural setting. And I knew at that time, it wasn't time for me to scale up.
I think that's very wise of somebody to recommend that and go through that
Yeah.
because it's easy to follow the money. It's easy to just let the business drag you along
Yeah.
as
Sure.
a hostile or not hostile, but as an unwilling participant. It's hey,
Right.
like I just got to work.
I know, totally. I think a couple more things about that really quick are that a couple of my mentors said, they were like, don't size up yet. Just keep working on getting more efficient at what you do. And that's what I've been doing. And like I said earlier, I'm just making more and more on the same plot. So it just like, to me, that made more sense rather than create all these new beds and then worry about, do I need to hire anyone? So I don't have any employees. I do everything except I have a harvest crew that comes in and helps me do this massive operation every week. But like expanding into more area, I knew that I was going to need to hire someone. And I don't know. I just don't know if I'm ready for that.
Yeah, it starts to puncture some of those concentric circles, the bubble bursts in them. If self-care is important, it's more stress to grow, it's people to manage, it's more money pressure usually,
Right.
more things, more space, more stuff's going to go wrong, more to do. So it's just
Yep.
time management, relationships that matter in your life, right? Those are going to be strained during start phases of anything. We got to go now.
Yeah.
So I totally get it. Was your mentors, if you look back, was a lot of you think their concern, perfect this first and then scale, get this as good as it can possibly be and then go up?
Yeah, I think just knowing me and knowing, yeah, just knowing I actually really like to keep things small. I have other businesses that I've kept really tight knit and I haven't hired a bunch of employees and things. And it's the way that I like to do business. And so I think people that were guiding me know that maybe other people want to have all these employees and all that. But like the way I like to operate is to keep it small and tight. And that's what I have right now.
Important to know because people don't, I don't think, put enough thought into this in any business, farming or otherwise. Of I'm going to need this to be my livelihood. So you're making a living wage. That's great. You don't have that. You don't have to expand to get to that wage increase, which is
Right.
where some people have to do it. So we just got to grow because
Yeah.
you're there. So then it's, what do I want my life to be? And how
Right.
does my business fit into it versus how do I fit my life around the business?
Yes. Yes.
It's a lot of what I've looked at with what we do with Paper Pod and Modern Grower. Of I see companies like Johnny's and they're amazing and they grow, but they probably have hundreds of employees and things like that. And
Right.
I'm not there. Like I'm into the idea of we have a limited number of products. We have a tight customer base. We have a
Yep.
few employees and that's what it is. I don't want to manage a staff of 50 below me and
Right.
all sorts of managers in different categories. That's just not who I am. And there's other
Right.
people that probably would
Yeah.
start a company and they're like, let's go grow, get it bigger. It's just knowing yourself, right?
Yeah, you're spot on. You're really explaining my philosophy and what I'm doing. And the news here even did a segment on me and called it relationship farming because I know that I can't feed this whole city, but my goal is to know every person that I am feeding. And I even have this system people buy from me online and I hand them their food every week out of a really cute little farm truck. I know every single chef because I give them the food. And I want to stay small and tight and compact and managing employees and having all these systems and everything for me and my business does not entice me. I want to be right in there. And that's what I like to do.
How have you built such a tight customer base for
Yeah.
an eighth of an acre? You sound like you're charging every bit what you need to charge, what it's
Yeah.
worth. Customer base is willing to pay it. That's
Yeah.
often the hard part for small farms in a landscape of declining food prices. This space has to charge more potentially than
Yeah.
grocery stores do. What's been your
Sure.
success in cultivating that customer base?
Oh, I love that question. It really goes back to what I was just talking about. Every person knows that I really care about them, and I've cultivated a relationship with everybody that's ordering food from me, including the chefs. So it's not just here you go, let me look up your number order. It's hi, what's going on in your life? Like I actually have relationships with everybody that's buying from me on both wholesale and retail. So those people tell their friends because they want their friends to be a part of this kind of food club thing where they're getting these really high quality vegetables, but they're also getting a lot of love and they give it back to me. And so it grew really fast. And I'll say also, I've been in this community a long time and I've done a lot in the community. So I had a kind of an instant following just through all the other things that I've done here. And one other thing to mention is that I was planting my first seeds on the day of lockdown in March 2020, literally putting the first things in the ground and going, oh my God, what am I getting into? Because I was just going to be this big farmer's market farmer where I was just going to take everything to the market, this market that I love, and I was going to try to sell everything. Well, that happened and the market was super strange and I pivoted really fast and I started selling my vegetables outside of a kombucha uh, brewer's place, got lines down the street of people in masks because they hadn't been out of their house when I started harvesting in late April. And everybody's so excited to go pick up fresh vegetables from a person that had just harvested them and washed them and hand them to them, and they didn't have to go to the grocery store for that. And so all of those things together was really like the relationship that I'm building with each customer has left a huge impact on what I do.
If you can distill that relationship down to a few things, what do you think is important for your customers? You've really stressed the personal connection, so I'm assuming
Yeah.
that's one thing.
Yeah. Beyond the personal, I think the huge part is trust and them knowing that like I'm caring for these crops in the environment that they're in a way that is important to them. Yeah. I'm not sure what else beyond that. It's really the relationship, the trust, the interaction piece, I think. Yeah. And also just knowing that they're going to get those high quality crops each time. There's just a baseline of like good produce too.
Do you think they buy from you or do you think they buy the food?
Both, but that's a really great question. I know that people buy from me because of my kind of my piece in the community here. Just people trust me. But I also, I would say me first and the food second.
Okay.
If that makes sense. Yeah.
One thing you've touched on is your involvement in the community, and any new business is going to struggle to get the first few people through the door. That's always the hardest part, getting that initial customer base. Because once you get that, you can get some word of mouth and referrals and that type of thing, but it's hard to start.
Mhm.
And having a solid anchor within some sort of community, be it a church community, a school community, whatever it is, just the community in general is
Mm.
always important. What advice would you have for people who are in an area and they're thinking about starting a farm to try and start building a network, get themselves out there, and not just an advertising way? Like, how do you become a part of a community?
Mm.
Is maybe as dumb of a question as that sounds.
Wow. How do you become a community? I think you have to find, I call it your song. So you got to find what you're really connecting to. Because if it's not what you feel like what you're really connecting to, it's hard to go deep with it. So for me, it's like, for an example, like yoga and health and yeah, a lot of communities that are like focused on being. And so I rooted myself in those because it was what like fulfills me and it enriches my life. And then I was able to utilize all of that connection, which then seamlessly, became food as well, which is a part of well-being. So, and I'm calling it finding your song, but it's like finding like what you love. And then that becomes your community. And then that becomes your customer.
So that
Yeah.
really you're your customer.
Yeah, exactly. And I knew like I've got an eighth of an acre. I can't feed the whole city, but I can feed people that I relate to and the people that they relate to,
Yeah.
And I
Let's
also teach other people how to do that because we should have more people doing this, feeding our community, the people like we know and we interact with.
that's the low hanging fruit in terms of communication, shared values,
Yeah.
approaching people. It'd be hard
Right.
for me to sell, I don't know, dirt bikes or quads or something like that. Like I'm not in that community, and it could be like really profitable, but I don't do that thing. I
Hmm.
don't feel rooted in there. And I'm not a farmer, but I've done enough tangentially to it now where I feel like, all right, I'm in that community. So there is that tie to it, which makes it so much easier. And people who start businesses or want to start a business, if they're listening to this, it doesn't have to be farming, but it's just what do you do all the time? If it's
Yeah.
yoga and kombucha or exercise, can you do something within that space that provides value to people just like you? And that's the simple answer, I think, to a lot of business questions.
Yeah. Yeah.
What initially got you started with Jenny? So you used to work for Jenny Quiner at Dog Patch Gardens. I think she's amazing in terms of entrepreneur,
Yeah.
farmer. How did you hook up with her and get started there?
Yeah, that's great. I'll backtrack a little bit before that. So in 2017, I did an apprenticeship at the farm that I currently am leasing land at. It's called Earth Dance Organic Farm School, and they're in St. Louis. And I had sat on the board of directors there for 10 years, and I knew that I wanted to do their apprenticeship program sometime. So that year I jumped in, and it was a 6-month organic farming apprenticeship at the time. And there's 30 people that go through it. And I remember that year as being just one of the most joy-filled years of my whole life. And that's the year that I went from I'm a backyard gardener to I will be a farmer. And so for the next 2.5 years, I just dove into everything like market gardening that I could find, conferences and workshops and master classes and books and all the things. And then I was like, okay, what do I need to take the plunge? What do I need? What's left for me to like really start my business and just be confident? And I knew I needed to go work somewhere that was similar to what I wanted to do, and at least for a season. And so I did some research, and Jenny's name came up at Dogpatch Urban Gardens. And I just called her up and I said, hey, Jenny, like I'm looking for this type of seasonal work on a market garden. And she's great timing. I'm getting ready to hire my first employee. Why don't you come in and interview? So I made the trip there and she hired me, and I worked so that was the full season of 2019. And right at the end of 19, I came home and literally started up my plot.
Biggest takeaways from working on somebody else's farm before starting yours?
It's a push and pull of like respect of what, the farmer wants you to do. And then also, what about this? Because I was the one mainly in the dirt. I was the one mainly doing most of the labor. And so I was maybe seeing things that Jenny didn't see. And so it was my opportunity to say, what about this? But also respecting, her experience and what she wants on her farm. And so that was an interesting, I think, dynamic between us. And it was great.
Would you ever want to be like her role, where you're the hub of, I'll call it multiple activities? You're not necessarily the one hands in the dirt all the time. You're directing, you're pulling the strings. Does that say your song, if you?
I think I would be very good at that, but I don't know that's what I want in my life. And my vision for my next place does have multiple components, but it's still mainly me and the scale that's scalable for me, if that makes sense.
Do you worry about you get hurt or something like that?
Yeah, I've got a lot of different types of insurance for that. Yes, absolutely. In all the careers that I've had, at least the last ones have been, I use my body. So I am concerned about that, but I also know how to work well and be smart in my body. But yes, it is a concern. So I have some special disability insurances just in case. And I'm also looking to get into some more like perennial style of farming where it may be like less labor as I'm getting older.
Right.
Yeah.
When you went from her farm to start your own, did you already have in mind renting the land from Earth Dance?
I did. So it was a unique situation because I said to Earth Dance, how about I help you start an incubator farm program here, which will help me launch my business without a bunch of huge startup costs, having to buy land and tools and equipment and harvest house and wash and all these things. And so it was a win because they had an apprenticeship program. But when it ended, people like me were like, what's next? Like, just an apprenticeship isn't enough to start a farm. So I had this idea of an incubator because they have 14 acres there. So there's plenty of space to rent out plots and whatever. So they approved it. And so the first year I was part of the incubator, but we soon found out that they didn't really have the money for the programming around like supporting farmers doing that at that time. And I just took it and ran with it. I was successful my first year, but that doesn't mean everybody would just come there and it would all work out. So it was an incubator in a sense, but like year 2, we just decided it's just a clean lease. But as I was finishing up my season, to your question, with Jenny, I was already had this idea in mind and it got approved. So it was like I came back, and then in the fall, November or so, after my season at Jenny's, I went out there and started prepping that plot too at Earth Dance to start planting in March of 2020.
Yeah. Land is one of those things that comes up about challenges to getting into ag. And I would say tend to only hear it from people who aren't farming.
Yeah.
Maybe who don't put in the effort to find the land.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because I feel like, sure, buying land, tough. If you want to start a big grazing operation and you need 100 acres,
oh yeah,
it's challenging. But you're telling me people can't find an eighth of an acre somewhere to either use or lease, like for cash? That's doable to me.
Yeah, I agree with you. So I live in St. Louis, and we're known for having probably the most vacant lots and vacant houses of any metropolitan area in the country. So I'm of the same mindset as you. Even if you're urban, like you could probably find a plot or something. And so I actually went through that process because I had thought about leaving Earth Dance's property to get even further into the city, like more in central, because I had this vision that I wanted my farm to be more visible than where it is now, just so people could learn and see, be walking by, biking by, and what is this? Because I really want to teach other people how to do this. And so in that process of looking for a new plot of land, wow, that was intense. Yes, there seemed to be empty spots everywhere, but the politics around it all, and like it just became this whirlwind. And at one point I decided, you know what, I'm actually probably going to be moving in a number of years to rural setting. So I let that go. So I agree with you and disagree with you, because I think everybody should be able to find an eighth of an acre, but I had a hard time. I had a lot of conversations, even with like aldermen and organizations. And it just like this, the conversation starts up and then they just get busy with something else. So it was challenging. Yeah. But I like going back to Curtis Stone's first years. He's somebody that really inspired me at that time, because I'm just going to go farm in these people's yards, which was cool. Yeah.
Yeah. There's many paths to get there, and nothing's going to show up at your doorstep. Odds up.
Right. You got to be in it. Yeah.
That's it. Yep. And there's also many puzzle pieces to make a business work. And some, you might be born with some, but the other pieces you're going to have to go out there and find and fit in yourself. You're not going to have the whole thing just handed to you.
Yeah.
When you look at renting land, would you have any advice for people on thoughts and considerations around rental agreements, that type of thing?
Let's see. Mine's been pretty smooth advice.
Is it yours year by year? Is it multi-year?
Yeah, mine's year by year. And it was a little sporadic in like how much I've gotten charged, because the first year it was actually free because it was like this incubator idea. And then as the next year it was like, okay, we're not going to do that anymore. So it was a certain price. And then like the next year is like everything across the board is so much more expensive everywhere in the country. And so my lease went way up. And yeah, I don't know. Like maybe the advice would be to have an ongoing conversation around what the expectation is each year or moving forward, because we didn't talk about it at all. And then all of a sudden I got the new lease and I was like, whoa, this went up a lot. So it was just out of the blue for me. So maybe like more regular communication just because the people need to budget for that.
When you look at the early years, can you tell me about when you realize this is going to work?
I will say that I believed it was going to work even in those first weeks when those people were lining up with their masks on outside. That very first like harvest season for me. I just knew it in my heart. And also because my crops were beautiful, even the first time around. I think I had this, if I put my seeds in the ground, is this really going to work like it did with Jenny's or like Ben Hartman says or whatever? You don't know. You put your first seeds in the ground. And I was like, wow, like these vegetables are really growing. This is beautiful. So I'm not sure that I ever had a doubt. And I think that the momentum just kept going and going because I was doing everything pretty much on my own. It was like I wasn't stopping. I was just doing everything and everything was selling. And the only times I maybe ever doubted myself was if I had an extra abundance of something. I was like, oh my gosh, this didn't sell online or something left because I had too much to sell and I needed to find a new customer for it. But yeah, for me, it right away felt like I am living my purpose. Yeah.
Was there ever a moment where the business felt a little rocky?
Possibly. The most rocky is when I did that quick pivot from, oh, I'm not going to do farmers markets to like, I'm going to create an online store. I did all that in less than a week. And I pulled out of the farmer's market and I was like, now I have this online store and I'm promoting that. And I've been doing it now into my fifth season because it worked so well. But I remember that week, I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I don't want to do the farmer's market. And I had heard some people were starting online stores and I had never sold anything online. And so I figured that out. But that was probably the time where I felt most unsure. I didn't even know where I was going to sell my vegetables. When that taught me, people say don't put all your eggs in one basket. And I really learned like just being a farmer's market vendor, just having one like sales avenue maybe isn't the best thing. So I did feel unsure at that time, but luckily it went off without a hitch. Yeah.
No, that's good. And now you've diversified. You have retail, you have wholesale.
Yes. Yes.
Is all your retail through the online store?
It is. Yes. Mainly through the online store. And then my wholesale side, it's a list of restaurants, but then I have a couple of shops that are like reselling my food. Yeah. So it's half and half, I would say, wholesale retail.
How do you run pickup for the online store? It's open for a window each week with a deadline? You pick it up on some day after that?
The window is very short. It's only 3 p.m. one day to like noon the next day. And then I pack up all the orders and I have this really cute little farm truck. It's a 1972. It was an ice cream truck and I made it really cute. And I drive it from the farm to this restaurant, this like farm to table restaurant that has this parking lot. And I park there and all my people come and pick up their orders. So like for a couple of hours, it's just this really fun, exciting time with this long line of people and everybody's getting to know each other and it's fun. And sometimes I'll have music or like a wine tasting or someone selling flowers or whatever. So I've created a mini market on my own. And it's really definitely the highlight of the week.
Awesome. How big do you think your draw is in terms of distance around where the farm is?
Well, I do know I have a customer it's probably an hour south. Yeah. But most people are metropolitan area, within 20 minutes or so. Yeah.
How's the food space there in terms of other small farms? Is it competitive? Do you feel?
Not really. We have a decent amount of farmers that are a little larger scale than me. Not a lot of small scale farms. And if they're small scale, they're not doing like the production and the quality that I'm doing. So I don't really feel like I have much competition. I would, like I've said a few times, I'd love to be teaching people to do this.
Yeah, St. Louis, big city, probably have
Yeah,
quite a few more of you around there with no issues.
definitely. Definitely. Yeah.
Trying to think of how to quantify this. If you looked at customers who bought something, let's say at least once a month, how many
Mhm.
total customers do you think you have?
Like on the retail side.
Yeah, retail.
Okay. It's a month. 100?
Okay. Yeah, then that's good because that what I'm trying to get at is it's can you find 100 people? That's not crazy for a lot of
No.
people.
Yeah.
It's not 1,000, it's not 500, it's 100 people to show up once a month. Now you have wholesale too.
Yes.
There's some offset there, but it
Right.
doesn't take a enormous volume of customers to make.
No. Right. Yeah. I mean, it might be more than that. Like I would say each week I have 70 retail orders. It's like Wednesday from 3 p.m. to Thursday at noon. I've got 60 to 70 orders. Those are the ones that I drive and they all pick it up. And then I've got a list of 8 to 9 solid restaurant shops, maybe 10, that are all buying at different quantities. I have a minimum order. And yeah, so can you find even 50 people you want to sell to? Because they're going to tell their other friend, and then you have 100 automatically.
Yeah.
You
What do you
know?
think an average order is for those $70 wise?
Oh, dollar wise, I would say $30.
Charging what your food is worth. This has came up in quite a few conversations lately that I've been having with people. What's been your pricing strategy to ensure that you make money
Mm,
and you at that intersect where you make money and you're where the customer will pay?
yeah.
How have you arrived at your pricing?
Mine probably hasn't been as formulated or strict as what maybe some farmers would say. I did a little research in the beginning on my area. I did some research on what I felt like my niche was, which is like high quality salad greens in certain places in the country. And also being at the larger farm, I got insight into all of their prices or the answers prices. And I came up with my own formula. And to be honest, I took their prices and I pushed it a bit higher. Now they've been around farming for a long time, but I just felt the quality of my products is so dialed in. And I'm only going to sell that highest quality product. So I dialed it up. And then over the years, I've slowly raised my prices as things are raising all over the country. And I haven't been very rigid on like tons of research about what the exact dollar should be for a pound of lettuce. But I believe that I'm pushing the very high end and having also on the flip side, having no one has ever said anything to me about your vegetables are too expensive. I've never had a chef say, oh, we can't pay that. So although I think I'm pushing those prices, they're very well received.
You look at salad mix and just put it on a per pound unit basis. Where are you at per pound?
Wholesale depends on the season. I'm doing really high quality greens, even in the height of the summer, 105 degrees, high humidity, St. Louis. But so I fluctuate in the season. In the like spring, fall, where most people are growing green, wholesale, I'm at 12, 13 a pound. Summer, I'm at 15 on the wholesale side. Retail, I'm bumping that up maybe 20, 25%.
Pretty good then, yeah.
Yeah.
So now looking forward, you have this farm that
Mhm.
mentioned living wage. You're getting more productive on it every year. You're increasing efficiency every year. You have a stable customer base, yet you are renting.
Yeah.
And you also have, hey, I want to maybe do some additional things. I want to be more rural. You mentioned that earlier. What's the plan going forward? How do you envision the future of Loving Roots?
Yeah. My partner of 10 years and I have been looking for our own land. At first, we wanted to build our own house that we designed. Over the process, we've also decided we might just buy a house that's already built on land. Building right now is very challenging. So once we find that property, I will be moving the farm to it. And I envision that farm will be similar to what I'm doing now with a couple of caveats. One is that I'm planning to do all wholesale. So I would be dropping the retail side. Don't tell my customers. I've also played around with the idea of doing a very small CSA kind of box thing just to keep some of them involved. But I'm fairly certain I'll be switching to just wholesale to restaurants and shops. And the focus will be on mainly the same types of crops like salad mixes of head lettuce and turnips and things like that. But the different part of it is that I would like to really switch up what seasons I farm. I've really honed in on the summer greens, and now I want to hone in on the winter green. So I would like to farm summer, fall, and winter and take off the spring. And that's for my own life choices because I'd like to be able to travel not only in the winter time, which is what I'm doing now. And I also just recognize I love farming so much, but I also know that I need a break. And I'd love to say that I'm going to farm year round because I've thought about that, but I also just know I'm still in a stage in my life where I want to travel and I'm just interested in other things. So I'd like to farm those greens in those high dollar seasons so that I can keep making enough. And I think that's summer and winter, to be honest. So that's one idea I have. Another one is that, so right now I grow outside only. I don't have any protected crops. And I will probably be purchasing a high tunnel and some other structures. And then I would like to actually start an elderberry farm, to be honest. I've been doing a lot of research and yeah, it's like my next dream. And I'm not sure how big it would be. I'm thinking around an acre of elderberries. Yeah. And then the larger overarching piece of all of this is that this would also be a homestead. So I would love to see this farm homestead operating as a place where people are also coming to learn from me. So maybe like farm coaching or classes, or I'm not sure what all yet, but I really envision this a larger kind of operation of community coming out, courses, things like that happening on the property.
Would dropping the retail just be to simplify things?
Yeah, it really would, because this process that I have now where I drive the vegetables and all of that, it's a lot of energy and it's a lot of time. And I think just dropping that piece would allow me to open up to do some other things as well.
Could you do that right now? If you had to flip the switch, could you cut retail and scale wholesale enough to
Yeah.
flip flop that revenue?
Yeah, I definitely could. I have a lot of other restaurants that are interested. I just don't have enough to go around.
Why don't you cut retail now?
Oh, I thought I thought about doing that this year. Oh, my heart. I don't know. My heart wasn't quite ready. I just have such a connection with these customers, and really on that pickup, that during that pickup time, like there's so much vitality and energy and fun. And it really feels like I'm receiving so much more back. And so not quite ready to do it, but almost ready.
Sounds like that's a vital part. Would you miss that?
I think so. Yeah. I think I would miss it, but just thinking through the logistics of it, change. And I think that would be something that would change. Yeah.
If you acquire new land now, would you have to run both in parallel?
Good question.
Like cash flow going and that type of thing?
Yeah, this is a very delicate question because we put an offer on a place and oh my gosh, we might be moving in a month and the place is like 40, minutes to an hour away from my current farm. So we're like juggling all these pieces. In the best case scenario, we would buy a place fairly soon. That's within 30 minutes of where I'm farming now. And I would still stay where I'm farming now. And then I'd be prepping that new land to start early next year. That's best case scenario. Yeah.
And then moving to that homestead or farmstead where you'd have, I'll call it life aspirational things that you want to do. You'd have the business side of things running off of that. I think that's a dream a lot of people have. It's like, it's the best of both worlds. I get to be somewhat self-sustaining, live out in the country, have a way to pay for it.
Yes.
Knowing what you know now, I think you're starting with a big advantage of you've had customers, you sell stuff, you grow stuff. How reasonable of an expectation is it to think that's possible? Some people just jump in blind. That's why I ask.
For me personally, or for other people, how reasonable is it?
Yeah, I guess in your scenario, do you feel this is a pretty low risk?
Most of the time I do, until I start thinking about it too much. And then I'm like, oh no, is this really going to work? I think it's very reasonable because, like you said, I have the customer base and they don't care if I'm farming in Ferguson anymore, or if I'm 30 minutes away in Eureka. Like, I'm not going to lose customers. So having that groundwork makes it like, okay, at least I know I can sell my food. The unknowns are in the property. Like, what's it going to take to get the property ready to flip a farm very quickly? In like, the soil that I've created, that I've worked with Mother Nature to create, oh my gosh, it's so amazing. Now I'm going to leave that soil and then I'm going to start over. And there's that process. There's a lot of unknowns, but within that, there's also some certainty. Like, I can do this again. Yeah.
Do you think if you got the land now, you could run your current farm and get set up on the new location for next year at the same time, so you could just swap over?
Yes, I do. Yeah. Because mainly it would be infrastructure. That would mostly have to have fall, winter, as my season now is starting to wind down, but I could at least be getting the plans together and hiring the people to do it. And then like getting the beds ready, it would be very similar, I think, to what I at Earth Dan. Like, I would go out there and start solarizing and doing whatever I can ahead of time. I'm pretty sure if we were to buy a place fairly soon in the year, that I could start on the next farm the next spring.
One thing I haven't asked, I'm curious on now, having just your eighth of an acre where you're at now, plus you bring in a harvest crew once a week for that. How many hours would you say you are into the business a week?
Yeah. At the actual farm, at the height of the season, I'm there about 38. That's including like my vegetable pickup and all that. I would say I'm about 40 hours tops. And then there's the computer work and whatever at home a little bit. But I've mainly got this to 35, 40 hours a week.
So there's still a lot of time outside of that to do other things. Yeah. Got it. Looking at elderberry and just exploring that for a moment. Yeah. What is thought there behind that?
I'd like to do some things that are perennial, not just annual vegetables. And elderberries are so, I think in most states, they're probably easy to grow, but definitely in Missouri, you can go anywhere and see an elderberry tree here. So I think the environment's right for it here. And I love the medicinal aspects of elderberries. Whether I want to get into creating products, I'm not sure. I think in the beginning, at least, I would just be focusing on selling the berries and the flowers. So I think it's a fairly, I don't want to call it easy, but simple operation to set up and to run. And I feel like once it gets going, like I could probably do most of it on my own, except for maybe during harvest season. And so, yeah, I've just been looking at like how to scale it for me and also the beauty of the actual tree, being able to see, I see it placed like where we can see it from the home and the big white flowers and just like tight crop of elderberries. It's just something that's in my vision. Yeah.
That's awesome. I think you're the one of the personifications of here's what I want my life to be, and then
Yeah.
I'll try and create employment conditions or a
Yep.
business to make that happen. So it definitely sounds like it's you leading the way and then finding a way to, again, fit the business around that, not vice versa.
That's so spot on. I really get very passionate about my quote unquote careers, but there's not a lot of line between career and not career for me. When I'm not farming, let's say I'm probably talking to somebody about food, or we're talking about what restaurant to go to or where we sell, or it's all one thing. And I envision my home to be that as well. I can't wait to have home gardens and elderberries to look at. And I like possibly have like little tours and like education on the farm. I love to educate. I've always been an educator. But yeah, I want my life like wrapped in this beautiful vision that all feels like synergy. It all feels like synergy, like how I want to live. Like another big reason I want to do this is right now I'm driving to this farm where I'm growing this high quality lettuce and I've got to drive 25 minutes to get there on this crazy freeway. And I'm like, I wonder what the water is doing, whatever. And if that's out my back door, well, I can just go look and see what's happening. That's been challenging for me. I want to look out and see it from my windows.
Yeah. I think life is so much easier when you're a room away, right? Or
Yeah.
a door away than mileage away.
Yeah. I mean, I can see how it's good for some professions to be like, you know, how they leave work and they go home and oh, that was work. And now here I am at home
I
and
get
it's too
that too. I
far.
definitely understand
Yeah.
that.
I could totally get that. But I think as a farmer, I don't feel that way. I don't feel that way. Like, I feel it's such an integrated aspect of who I am. And like, I would much rather walk out and make sure there's no deer in the field and not have to drive to do that and just come back inside. Yeah.
Along the lines of educating people, some closing thoughts on red flags for new farmers, things to watch out for if you're starting a farm.
Yeah. Yeah. We touched a little bit on the like maybe getting too big or too big too fast or taking on too much, at least in the style of farming that I've chosen. Gosh, almost smaller is better. In my eyes, efficiency is key. Seeing all of your crops. So maybe just really thinking about what size is right for you. And I also believe that you've got to know who you're selling to, at least a good amount of that whole like 50 people or whatever it is. Like you have to have a pretty good idea of like where you're going to start. Cause next thing you know, those things are ready to harvest. So just having a plan and also being flexible, like I had to be during COVID, but being sure, but also being flexible because you might need to pivot a little bit, or you might find that your idea of who you're selling to isn't optimal. So researching, I think there's a lot of research to be done on like how you can sell vegetables and being creative about it. Having mentors, oh my gosh, having mentors is crucial. There's been numerous times where I call Ray Tyler out in the field and I'm like, oh my gosh, you have to see what is this on my lettuce? And being able to like have a friend mentor that can give you a little assurance or some advice is so beneficial.
Any advice on finding mentors? Is it as simple as just asking people? Is it people,
Yeah.
if you have somebody you took a class from or you apprentice for,
Right.
that's one thing, but
Yeah.
other people?
Gosh, for me, it's just happened through the people that I actually learned from, like a multitude of those. So I think it really needs to be a mentor in farming. So they got to know the ins and outs of that. I'm not sure. Number one is just who do you learn from? You know?
And that's one thing you talked about earlier that you're starting to do and want to
Mhm.
get more into
Yeah.
helping new farmers,
Right.
mentoring people. I'm sure just not locally throughout the country. Can you talk a little
Yeah.
bit more
Oh,
about that?
absolutely. Yeah. I just launched my new website yesterday and I'm going out there and offering some services like garden coaching and farm mentorship, and just really playing with this idea. I have people reach out with questions. So why not make it a little bit more formal? I envision like calls, just simple, like I'm calling it phone a farmer, but like people can phone me for consult or if they have a specific farm related question. But I'm also looking for someone maybe that would want to apprentice with me on the farm. So it's a broad idea around different ways that I can work with people.
Yeah, I think it's really key when you're starting to have somebody who's walked that path before. Recently, like my wife started up her own little side hustle business, and it's very different than what I do, but just some of the basic things that I've done from
Yeah.
websites to accounting and all that. It's just focus on this, do this. Those
Yeah.
little things that could save people hours of time, I think really add up and pay off. So yeah, people can reach out to you at lovingrootsurbanfarm.com to get help with all these little things. And
Yeah, it's so good just to have someone say, yeah, try it this way, or just to back you up on a thought that you have. Cause there's numerous times I'm out in the field, even now, where I'm like, what if this happens? What if this happens? I got to ask somebody. And just like having one other farmer say, yeah, give it a go, or have you thought about this, is so helpful. So I want to offer that to other people. And it can be casual too. It doesn't have to be super formal, but I just want to help.
that's the great thing about this community. I think there's a lot of cutthroat sectors within the marketplace out there.
Yeah.
I found that at least the market farming space is very communal. Most of the people in it are willing to help, share information, take time out of their lives to help other people. That's what keeps me going. That's why this show is possible. And I know it's happening infinitely more offline amongst people and peers helping each other. So that's one thing I'm proud of in this community is just that, the communal aspect of it.
Me too. I've never felt any competition from a farmer. Maybe the opposite is almost like, and this is my belief too. We need more people growing food. This isn't competition. Please learn how to do this. You can find people to feed. I can find people to feed. I just think the more the better. And I've experienced that from every mentor, every farmer that I've met is we're all helping each other. Even the farmers in my community, we're helping each other. That's not competition at all.
That's it. You're not Pepsi and Coke fighting for the same
Right.
eyeballs. It's you
Right.
have 100 people. Odds of them switching to all of them a neighboring farm because they're 50 cents cheaper for their carrots, like
Right.
not
Right.
happening.
And I definitely am more than 100. I've got 1,100 people that get my email every week. How many of them? Some people buy it every single,
Sure.
without fail, right? And then some people once every other week. And then you've got people like, oh my gosh, I haven't seen you in a couple of months. So I'm not sure the total number, but I think if you got 50 to 100, you're making good vegetables, you're going to do great.
Do you think your farm style, your business style fits your personality? If you learn from Curtis and their early podcasts, I'm sure Jenny has her own way of doing things. Everybody has their own approach to business. Some are much more line by line, very rigid. Some people flow through business and feel it out and just have an intuition about it. And I'm very much like a procedural person, like
Yeah.
checklists and start this way and think about these things.
Yeah.
But just teaching people, I've realized everybody has a different approach and learns in different ways. Do you have any thoughts on that?
My particular style is definitely a blend of the two. So my background is actually in statistics, which is what my degree is in. I have a very analytical brain, but I'm also super creative. I write music. I love to dance. I live in the like yoga world. Like it's just, so for me, it's traditionally, I want to write out all the numbers and have all the spreadsheets and keep everything like checked to the dot and to the T and make sure you got all the right numbers. And then I've actually learned in farming, chill, go with the flow, because the crops, you never know exactly what's going to happen. You can predict, but so like I said earlier, like my crop plan's there, but like I keep moving it around and I don't have to, I've learned that I don't have to be super, super strict on numbers and crop plans and all of that because I'm so small that it just flows in a way that makes sense. So I guess everybody has their own way. Yeah, mine's really a blend of the two. Yeah.
Well, I think that's anybody who gets experienced
Yeah.
knowledge in anything. Athletes are
Hmm.
not Patrick Mahomes or somebody out there is not thinking like, okay, like exactly do this. Like they are reacting to the situation.
Yeah.
They're just
Yeah.
processing and doing.
Right.
And they often say in many disciplines, if that's athletics or something else, the more you think about it, the more you screw it up because you're so focused on, I need my
Right.
elbow to be exactly like this versus like just do it. And I think there is something to that of just relax,
Hmm.
have confidence in your ability,
Yes.
have confidence in your experience, be able to see what's going on and just react and flow with it. Now, a beginner is going to have a hard time doing that because you just don't have the experience
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
the skill to do that. But you will get to the point where I just know. Like I can now, like, same thing with our inventory. I don't have to look at a spreadsheet to be like, oh, exactly how many of this
Yeah.
product do we have? All right, I see that much. We're good. I don't have to reorder yet.
Yes. Yes. It starts becoming intuitive, but also based on history. And I would say add also like reflection. The more you reflect on how well something went or how the process worked out or whatever, the more you believe and the more you have that in your brain and your mindset. Yeah.
You seem pretty chill. Do you ever get stressed out over?
It's funny. You're just reading my mind because I was reflecting on, okay, so about every like beginning of June, my harvests are so big. There's so much food that I start to freak out. And this has been a pattern for me every year. And I'm saying to my volunteers, I'm quitting. I like the kales everywhere and it's just it feels like too much to handle. And I just remember a couple times I was like, I'm just gonna quit today. And one of my volunteers said to me, now let's wait until tomorrow to think about that. And I like luckily got to laugh at myself and be like, all right, Jill, you're gonna be fine. The problem is that you have too much food. Like, it's okay. So normally I'm pretty chill, but I'm telling you, I also in the field can be like, let's get this shit done. I want to get out of here. Y'all want to get out of here. And then, yes, I sometimes have those, oh my gosh, I have too much food moments. But other than that, yeah, I'm pretty chill. And I actually really love working on my own. It's like my therapy. So I'm out there just loving the sounds and the sights and all the things. And I'm pretty chill. Yeah.
What have you done to make the entrepreneurial lifestyle work? And what I mean by that is this can chew people up mentally,
Yeah.
physically, spiritually. It can be just all encompassing. And I'm constantly like a sine curve up and down on how I feel about business, where it's like, all right, I feel good. I feel burned out. I feel good. I feel burned out. What do you do to make sure that you're never burned out, or when you feel like you're getting to that level that you can check?
Yeah. One we've already talked about is that I've decided in all of my businesses to stay small enough that it's for me.
Yeah.
Like this business is structured so that I can do the work. And yes, I have volunteers. And yes, if I'm just in a huge bind, I can call on a couple people, but I've scaled it to be for me. And two is that because I take the winter off, I have another business that I do, but I'm taking the winter off of farming. I really go into like major hibernation and repair mode. And because of that, I think I have a lot less burnout than I would if I just kept pushing like all 4 seasons. So I know I'm pushing through my season and then it's intense and then it starts to taper off. So that's a balance point for me is like taking the winter off. In three, I told you earlier, like self-care and balance is a very high priority for me. So meditation and yoga and breathing and exercise and spirituality and travel. And I just really am very focused on peace.
I like all those things. That's stuff you can do to limit your season, to do in season. I think one of the huge takeaways, at least for me in this episode, is I know what I can do, and I've limited my business to that. Because that by definition, that's your mental fence. You expand your farm 4x. Now you open up a lot more you will have to do. And if you already know you're past that limit, like you're constantly in that, this is too much to handle zone.
Exactly. That's why I feel like this next kind of iteration of my farm life is adding the elderberries is a way to have a piece that's going to make me some money that doesn't like every single day I'm out there digging up carrots. It's like an operation that once I get it going, hopefully bring me in some money. And then over time, I'll have that as like a stable part of my income, but it isn't creating this thing where I need to hire 20 people and whatever. It feels like a mindful way to grow my business.
Yeah, I don't want to say passive, but a lot less
Yeah.
touchy of it all
Right.
the time.
And that's also the educational piece too. It's like I'm looking out, so I'm 46. I'm looking out till I feel great and strong and everything. And I'm sure I can farm a lot longer, but I'm starting to create my exit plan, just slowly like adding things that aren't going to require so much physical labor, but that are keeping me rooted in farming, which is like education and some type of perennial crops that maybe are less hands-on.
It's smart. People with careers, not just business owners, should be doing this.
Yeah.
Looking at what else can I do? Like, how can I bring some value to the world just as a soul work, as alternative income, as a side hustle, as a retirement plan? Having all your eggs in one basket is just, it's really risky. And
Yeah.
that's tough. So I applaud you for thinking ahead and doing all these things. It's been amazing. For people that want to learn more, they can check out lovingrootsurbanfarm.com. You're on Instagram, all those places. So they can check out the farm there. Wish you the best of luck with the move, and maybe we
Thank
can
you.
chat after you get things all set up there.